Thank you so much, Claire. Can everyone hear me? I am thrilled with this award and the chance to thank so many of you for your own inspiring civic courage and for being treasured allies and friends. There are lots of parallels between the iconic David against Goliath battle over Westway and what's happening with climate change and the use of misuse of public resources today. Westway, as Claire mentioned, I guess, was a multi-billion-dollar plan to build a huge real estate development site in an environmentally critical habitat in the Hudson River off Manhattan. A highway was included in the plan in order to tap federal highway funds, but misusing billions of taxpayer dollars to help finance and build real estate in the river was the Westway Plan's chief goal. Prize-winning journalist Sidney Schanberg wrote in 1985, "As a public works project, the Westway Plan may be this generation's largest suggested misuse of scarce public funds. But we do owe it an educational debt as a wondrous unfolding case study of wheeling and stealing on a grand scale." What Schanberg wrote then is even more true of Westway's successor. Today's planned Son of Westway project, as I call it, could be the poster child for the power of money to deliver bad projects and ruinous policies. This planned piecemealed river development project spans up to a staggering 490 acres of the river, the equivalent of 121 city blocks, but in the water. This tumultuous stretch of the Hudson is a #1 highest risk hurricane evacuation zone. So the politicians and public authorities bent on subsidizing new development at this disaster-prone location are putting more people in harm's way unnecessarily with everything they build in the river. Unlike Westway, a boondoggle from a simpler time, everything about Son of Westway and related policies is maddeningly complex. Much of my work involves translating the Orwellian language used to sell and advance Son of Westway and the other similar wasteful, environmentally destructive projects and policies. I also work to clarify the tangled web of risky complex financing schemes proposed to funnel backdoor subsidies into pork barrel projects, including high-risk backdoor borrowing and speculation. A public-private venture for building in the river now would shift liability for storm and hurricane damage and other harms to the taxpayers, and would pretend that water is just the same as upland real estate, so that alleged air rights, that is, unused development rights over the river, can be used to do deals involving air rights sales and transfers. The powerful lead agency in charge of Hudson River development is the so-called Hudson River Park Trust, a prime example of misleading spin. HRPT is actually an unaccountable public authority with vast powers to take in money from every conceivable source and give out unlimited leases and contracts to build in the river to wealthy titans of Wall Street and real estate and to global construction and energy conglomerates. HRPT and its partners also work in concert to promote environmental deregulation, and they hope to export their models around the globe. The term Hudson River Park is another example of the misleading terms that are endlessly repeated in order to spread mass confusion. The term is used to include not only a greenway at the river's edge, but everything the HRPT authority plans to build and do in a vast, irreplaceable marine habitat in the Hudson River, not just along the river, but right in it. My group, Clean Air Campaign, tries to counter false narratives and misrepresentations with a new website called westwaythenandnow.org. We work with Friends of the Earth, the Sierra Club, NYPIRG, and other allies to oppose as many bad proposals as we can, not only for building in the Hudson River, but for related national policies. Superstorm Sandy should have ended schemes to build out into public waterways, especially the lower Hudson. The fact that it didn't shows how far we all still have to go to get our politicians and governments to deliver effective climate change and disaster prevention policies. Preserving the Hudson River as a river instead of a real estate development site was already profoundly important, even before severe storms and hurricanes became more frequent with climate change. The nearshore waters of the lower Hudson estuary provide a rich, productive habitat of extraordinary national importance for sustaining migratory coastal fisheries. The river's undeveloped stretches offer treasured views of open water. Preserving the river as a river provides priceless open space at minimal cost, freeing up funds in limited budgets for mass transit, libraries, schools, and other essentials. But climate change now lends new urgency to spreading the word not only about those older issues, but several new issues and realities as well. The first one is that moving new development away from the water is the only policy that has proved 100% effective for stemming losses in low-lying coastal areas like the Hudson River. Subsidizing new real estate development in the river at sea level goes in exactly the wrong direction. A second crucial set of realities involves aquatic habitats and fisheries. Coastal and global fisheries are the single most important source of protein for the world's malnourished populations. Habitat loss and destruction is the most important factor in declining global fisheries, even more important than overfishing. Human beings can't live very long without food, especially protein. Bangladeshi immigrants from nearby housing projects already go fishing for food in New York rivers. Their search for affordable protein is nowhere near as intense as the desperate search for edible fish will be as sea level rise engulfs low-lying nations. There's a great environmental law that could address all of these old and new issues at once if EPA and the Army Corps would just uphold it. Section 404 of the Federal Clean Water Act. Section 4 rules effectively prohibit the Corps from granting permits to build non-water dependent projects in the water if those projects can be sited on dry land, at higher, drier, safer upland locations, for example. Landmark federal court decisions in Sierra Club et al. Versus U.S. Army Corps of Engineers et al., the case that overturned Section 404 permits for Westway, created a good, strong basis for upholding Section 404 protections for the physical integrity of aquatic habitats in rivers and coastal waters. The main obstacle standing in the way of vigorous implementation of this sensible policy for not only sustaining fisheries and navigation, but also keeping people out of harm's way in storms and hurricanes is, of course, you guessed it, the organized power of big money. Why do I and my best allies keep going in the face of that power and other obstacles to the wise use of limited resources in major resource allocation battles like the ones over the Hudson River and over city, state, and federal spending priorities? Well, for one thing, protecting and preserving the miraculous natural systems that Mother Nature gave us really, really matters. So does keeping as many human beings alive and well as we can. For another thing, unexpected surprises keep coming out of the blue to help us and inspire us to go on. The huge turnout at the Climate Change March a few weeks ago was one. Current corruption investigations by U.S. attorneys is another. I hope those probes into the abuse of power don't ignore the misuse of Sandy aid going on in New York and New Jersey now, and development quid pro quos. But among the biggest reasons to keep trying to save natural resources like the Hudson River and the great laws designed to protect them, and to reverse climate change, and stand up to the forces of hubris and greed, those reasons are the lessons we can draw from Westway. At the first public hearing on Westway, I was told it was useless to fight it. The people who want Westway are too powerful, I was told. Nevertheless, we fought, and hundreds of citizens eventually proved the political realists wrong. On September 11th, 1985, the House of Representatives voted overwhelmingly to cut off funds for Westway's development site in the river, while preserving New York's right to billions of dollars for mass transit, a riverfront bikeway and greenway, and a road on dry land. The trade-in, Claire mentioned, funds, as they were called, helped turn New York's decrepit mass transit system around. In Congress, a right-left coalition of fiscal conservatives, transit advocates, and environmentalists produced a huge vote in favor of the trade-in. Citizens from all those groups had lobbied Congress together, led by the great Jill Lancelot. We had agreed to acknowledge and accept our differences. The National Taxpayers Union, for example, generally opposed transit subsidies, but agreed to go along with the trade-in. The day of the vote, the House held the first genuine public debate over Westway on the merits that decision makers with real power had ever had. No party line votes were delivered. The huge vote was for sensible public spending priorities. There was real democracy that day in Congress, and my God, there's nothing like it, except maybe for preserving the natural systems on which all life depends. That's a really good thing, too. The Westway fight taught me that big battles can be won when all kinds of different people doing different things pull together. Hundreds of good journalists helped immensely, and I hope a new generation of investigative reporters and truth tellers about the river will emerge again. Trustworthy, true blue leaders like Bunny and Dan Gable, who are here tonight, were and are essential. So is Mitch Bernard, the lead attorney who won the Westway case in the final crucial round. And so were the troops who listened and learned and spoke out for the public good again and again and again. I know all too well how hard it is for time-starved citizens to engage in civic life. But I hope this wonderful Joe Callaway event will replenish our spirits and spark new thoughts about how to make things different and better working together. Thank you.